Welcome back, everyone. Welcome back to the Greyhorn Pagans podcast. Back again with another interesting guest. Of course, I always promise to bring the most interesting guests, and I believe I succeeded again in this. Today, my guest for today is Mr. Mark Blacknell, and he has developed an interesting meditation practice, let's say. So, yeah, Mark, thank you for joining. And for those who may not be familiar with you or your work just yet, introduce yourself. Who are you? What do you do? What's your secret?
Well, usually the pagans that I talk to are the outlaw biker type. I don't know if you ever heard of the pagans, outlaw bikers, but their clubhouse was in my hometown when I was a kid. So that's the kind of guys I idolized when I was young. And then I joined the Marines, and I've had some trouble with the law myself, some trouble with alcohol and addiction. But not anymore.
And that's always
So,
good.
so I like to come on shows like yours and talk about how I kind of changed my evil ways.
Well, I mean, alcohol addiction, I think a lot of us have been there. I definitely struggled with some substance abuse in the past, mostly to numb myself, like I was feeling too much, and it really just helped me not feel anything. And I quit drinking a little over a year ago because that it was starting to give me more problems than it was worth it. And yeah, the lifestyle switch, it's different. It'll give you new perspectives, open your eyes to things that you couldn't see before because of like whatever haze you were in.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. It's just life's tough. And I think we all forget that at times, and we're hard on ourselves and we're hard on one another. And it seems as though successful people generally are the hardest on themselves and
Yeah.
hard on others. So, kind of the example we get from society now, I'm talking from an American perspective, which is quite, let's just say, unique. Always,
Yeah.
always has been, but it's even more unique these days. We're hard on one another and we're hard on ourselves. And you mentioned that there's this technique or meditation that I've come up with. I didn't come up with anything. This has been around for thousands of years.
I mean, meditation has been, of course.
Yeah,
Yeah.
meditation has. I've just basically simplified it to the point where, I say just stare at the wall. Now, there's a reason for that. I'm a product of my environment.
Hmm.
I'm a little bit older, so technology has come in probably when I was in high school, college. It started to really kick in, the internet and all that. But even before that, I did my homework in front of the television.
Yeah, that
You know, I
sounds
I
familiar.
I watched the Brady Bunch. That tells you how old I am. It was the Brady Bunch. When you came home from school, I did my homework
Hmm.
to the Brady Bunch. So we're not really used to silence. We have a lot of choices. We have a lot of distractions,
Yeah.
some big ones, some little ones. So for me personally, I needed to come up with, or at least find something that was very, very simple. When I got out of the military, I was a philosophy major and I was always searching for the truth. And I've had some, let's just say hallucinogenic experiences.
Mm, as many on the path have.
Yeah, which certainly influenced me when I was younger, but it kind of took me off the path, because I had these amazing experiences where I left the planet Earth and met, councils of elders and,
Mm.
looked down upon the earth. But okay, so now that's done. Now I'm back in my normal life. What do you do with that? It can,
Yeah.
it can make it made me a little more confused than I was before, to be quite honest.
I can definitely understand that, after meeting such, amazing beings, council of elders, council of this and that, and then you're just, at the stove cooking your meal like just this everyday person while you just had this amazing experience. I can definitely understand
Yeah, well, I mean, what do you
how
do
that
with that?
disconnects you.
Right. So for, 25, 30 years, I was searching, always reading, always trying new things, trying to heal myself. But it wasn't until I sought actual psychiatric mental health treatment from trained clinicians that I actually got anywhere.
Yeah.
So I'm a spiritual person and I talk about meditation. I'm part of the Zen tradition, but I'm a big advocate for legitimate mental health treatment,
Yeah.
especially in today's day and age. Now, it's kind of like establishing a spiritual practice. It took me over a year or more to be able to communicate to my subscriber, in this case, a psychiatrist, what I was experiencing on the medication I was prescribed based on
Hmm.
my diagnosis. It took me a year or more to find the right combination of medication to get me to a relative level of stability.
Yeah.
So that was a trial and error in itself. I could have easily thought to myself, this medication's making me worse. It's making me sick. This isn't working. What am I doing? All these therapy sessions, prolonged exposure. This is a waste of time. Modern medicine is a waste of time. I could have easily gotten into that line of thinking.
Which a lot have, and a lot in the well, in the spiritual communities, they are like, oh, it's the establishment, like stay away from them. But
And
some may actually be able to help you.
yeah, you got to
I've
find the right person
yeah,
and the right
absolutely.
medication, and that's a process in itself that you might want to stick with. I can only say for me, if it wasn't for legitimate mental health and meds, I would have never reached a point of stability where I actually could practice spirituality, in
Yeah,
my ordinary everyday life. I
yeah.
would have never been able to see that my whole life is kind of a spiritual practice. There's no separation if I get in a robe and go into a meditation center or a zendo. It's not
Yeah.
separate or more sacred than my living room. I
No,
would have never I
that's
would have never come to that conclusion that my wall right over here that I stare at is good enough. It's sacred enough. I mean, walls are pretty amazing. You don't really appreciate the wall that houses you until you lose it. It's a war, fire,
uh,
addiction. You
yeah.
lose your job, you can't afford it anymore. Then you appreciate your walls. Now, some walls I don't really appreciate.
Yeah.
They keep things out. So we got to be careful, even with walls. I talk about staring at the wall all the time. Well, I got to be careful I don't get stuck behind my wall. Sometimes I
Yeah.
do. Sometimes I do. So
Or
I
have
was
your
just
or have your
sorry.
own walls pulled up too high, perhaps.
Yeah, your ivory tower walls. You mean?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Just any
you
kinds.
know,
Yeah.
in the spiritual world, that. Well, we're aware, and they're not. You know,
Uh,
we
yeah,
Yeah.
the
Oh,
gatekeeping, putting up a giant wall, gatekeeping. Yeah, that's a thing. Yes.
yeah. I always talk about how kids don't gatekeep the playground unless they're bullies,
Yeah.
and generally they're taught to be bullies by you know their parents or their influences. Kids
Yeah.
don't just
Yeah.
become bullies for no reason. I dealt with a lot of bullies when I was a kid. I'm from Philadelphia. It was pretty tough back in the 70s back then. And there were a lot of bullies. So I was always either having to fight the bully bullies or getting off at a different bus stop so I could like maneuver around them.
Oh man, yeah, that's tough.
But in the spiritual world, there are quite a few gatekeepers. And
Yeah.
I finally came to the point where I said, okay, I'm going to hang up the robe. I'm going to stop being associated with any particular tradition, even though I give all credit to my Soto Zen lineage and my teacher and the whole lineage of people who, started this whole meditation thing. I kind of model myself on a guy by the name of the Bodhidharma. He was an Indian
Hmm.
guy, but he went to China, searching for the truth. And he basically stared, some people say 7 years, some say nine, but he stared at a wall for 9 years straight. And then people started to be like, hey, there's this dude. He's staring at a wall. He's been meditating there for years. And then people started getting interested in him.
Hmm.
So he never wanted to teach anyone. He's my model because I'm just like him. Students are trouble.
They most certainly can be. Yeah.
A lot of work, yes. And I only have so much space. I have little kids. Well, they're not little anymore. They're teenagers. I have bills. I have obligations and responsibilities.
Yeah, yeah, can't handle, more rowdy students trying to pick your brain at every moment of the day when you also have a life to live.
Right. There has to be boundaries. And that's,
Yeah.
you know, and you have to be careful how involved in their lives you get.
Yeah, to, keep a appropriate distance. Yeah,
Well,
which
yeah, I
can be
always say,
hard if you care about them, like actually care about them. You want to
yes,
help them, of course. Yeah.
exactly. You want to teach them to teach themselves so they don't need you anymore. That's what I always say.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean
Teacher,
that's
all the real teachers I've ever met, all they were doing was helping me teach myself so I didn't need them anymore, and they make that clear.
I mean, that's what a great teacher does, He teaches you, everything that you could ever need so
Or
that you don't
she,
need
she.
or yeah, she just kind of overgeneralizing. I do apologize.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. No, my greatest teachers have been women. That's why I interjected there.
Uh, yeah, I mean, same. Honestly, learned a lot from my grandmother. She was very sweet, but I kind of still somewhat wise, even though I don't think she really meant to be wise, but there's one thing she always told me that, well, later in life, now I truly understand. If you want to better the world, start by bettering yourself. And just like later in life, when especially when everything became too much, started really centering, like focusing on myself, and I was like, guess grandma was right. Who knew? My wife has been a great influence on me. Like I was I was still a pretty wild one when she met me. Just didn't really care. And, honestly, kind of flirted with everything that kind of just give me a little attention. I like the attention. I like to give attention. So you know, if a pretty girl smiles at me, hey, I'm sold.
Well, we have a lot in common.
But yeah, she definitely grounded me, helped me center, helped me find myself. So I'm very thankful for that. And also, as you mentioned, a therapist. Like I didn't have any medication, but and a bad history with psychologists, psychiatrists. Like I lost faith in just that as a whole because of experiences in my teenage years. Found her, happened to live like the next block over from my aunt and uncle, so I was familiar with the neighborhood. That was funny, and she integrated shamanic practices in her, in her practice as a therapist, and that really helped. And she didn't buy any of my shit, and that sucked. Like I she would ask a question, I give an answer, and she'd be like, "Okay, that's indeed exactly what I want to hear. But what's the actual answer?" And I'm like, "What's your actual feeling on this?" And I'm like, "God." damn it, she's not buying it. Fuck, now I have to do actual work. But
Well,
she really did. She really did help me. So
that's the beauty of a practice, a legitimate practice. You
yeah,
know, you end up saying that to yourself 50 times a day.
yeah,
You
yeah.
gotta holding yourself accountable. We have to be careful when we start thinking, oh, we're we're cured, we're aware. Now we're there. We got it now. That's when the trouble starts.
Yeah, and then it comes back around to smack you, and you can start from scratch again.
Well, luckily, I had the great master Bodhidharma as my example. I don't know why. Something in his approach just stuck with me, the old stories and wise tales.
Hmm.
But he didn't want any students after people started realizing what he was doing. So this one guy, he was kind of persistent. He would sit out in the cold by the gate, and he. But Bodhidharma still didn't really pay much attention to him because he was staring at the wall. But then the guy chopped his arm off and handed it to Bodhidharma, and that got his attention.
Whoa, okay.
So he knew
That's
he knew he was serious, and that was his first student. I kind of agree with that approach. It's a little harsh. I mean, I wouldn't
yeah.
expect someone to. I expect them to stare at a wall for 5 minutes, 2 weeks straight without missing a day. That's the equivalent, the modern day equivalent of chopping your arm off and handing it to me. If you can
Yeah.
do it for 2 weeks straight for 5 minutes, just meditate, staring at a wall, then I can work with you. But other than that, I can't because I'm too busy staring
Hmm.
at the wall. I realize that this is the first time in I think 3 days where I've actually talked.
Oh wow, really?
It's not any vow of silence or anything like that, but these weird, subtle practices start to develop on their own when you stop
Yeah.
and go still long enough.
Huh.
These cool things start to pop up, like maybe I won't talk. I don't really have anything to say, so
Yeah.
maybe I'll just listen to the voices that are in my head. Which ones really need to come out? And which ones can I just kind of pat on the head? I talk about this all the time, how we have all these inner voices, and that
Yeah.
when you kind of stop and go still and silent, they all pop up. And they're at the
Yeah.
point now, if you do it long enough, year after year after year after year, like I was talking about the Spain Portugal match, it's kind of like a
Mm.
kid that kicks the ball. The football, we call it soccer here. Of course, we have our own terms for everything. Kick
Yeah. I
kick the
know
ball
that.
against the wall years after year after year after year and practices with the ball, kind of becomes an extension of their foot.
Hmm.
They still make mistakes though. Even the best players, they still make mistakes.
I mean, yeah, they're still human, so
They're still human. But
no matter on what pedestal you put them.
right. And they're going to age, and then they're gonna be commentators or the guy you see in the audience,
Yeah, yeah,
at the World Cup. So everyone has to deal with that. I'm at that point now where, I used to say, "Ah, well, I have time. I'll." Now I'm like, "Ooh, man, can't can't put
yeah.
things off." Time
No, you
keeps.
you have time until you don't, and it really feels like time is speeding up. I'm 34 now, and I'm already noticing that there are for like everything that I want to do, there are too few days in a week and too few weeks in a month. There's so much that I want to do, but again, also, work, life, wife, kids.
Well, I was
So
34 and 84. So that
that's
kind of get, imagine not 84, 94, excuse me, in
okay. Okay, that's
1994. So think 1994, though, that seems pretty ancient, right?
I was
Kind of
2.
94. Yeah.
I
So
was 2
look,
years old.
this is you, man.
Well,
If you're
I mean,
lucky, if you're lucky, yeah.
I've seen a lot worse.
But that relentless march of time, you know, if you think in terms of just plain old balance, like, to ride a bike, you ride a lot of bikes over there and
Yeah, we do.
in Holland, yes, which I wish we did more, but we'd get run over and people
Oh,
do,
they do here too, but I
I'm
mean,
sure, but you have a lane at least and it's
yeah,
expected.
yeah,
Where here it's
our
like, why is this guy riding his bike in the middle of the road? And people get
yeah, no, our
angry.
cities are actually built for pedestrians and bikes mostly. So yeah,
But this is just putting your body in a balanced position each day and stopping all that, the relentless march of time, all the spinning thoughts, all the distractions, all of that. Just putting your body in a balanced position so that eventually, if you do it long enough, and I don't mean like 10 days straight or 7 years straight, I mean like consistently,
yeah,
over the week, it's part of your routine. It somehow begins to balance your mind and your emotions. I don't claim to know how it works. I don't get into the scientific part of it all. I'm not really, like I said, I try to simplify everything. I
yeah,
just know if a kid kicks a soccer ball against the wall long enough, he'll start to understand where it bounces. He'll start to
yeah,
understand how to control it if he focuses. And all this is just learning how to focus. And one of the things you're focusing on is what's coming up in you. Like people say, okay, now I sit and I meditate. Now, what do I do? Do I try to stop thinking? I say, whatever happens, happens. Just watch it. Try to watch it.
yeah,
Whatever's coming up, just watch it. Try not to judge it. That's like stage one, because you'll judge
yeah.
all
People
these
are
voices
very judgmental. Yeah,
of themselves too. Like I
yeah,
was
we
very
judge ourselves
judgmental.
the harshest. Yeah,
Yeah, like why can't I focus? Why are all these thoughts and feelings popping up? And so that's kind of like
yeah,
stage one. It's different for every person who meditates. There's no one size fits all, but every morning when I sit down, like the whole universe is spinning. I mean, I feel wobbly every day, whether it's from a dream or maybe I didn't sleep so good, or maybe what happened the day before, or maybe I got a stressful day ahead of me. It's
mm,
all spinning. It's like, cloudy apple cider. But then
mm.
I just balance, sit there nice and still and quiet, and it all settles. And then I'm like, cool, I'm ready for the day. It's that simple. That's
Yeah. No, it is. No, it's funny that I have you on talking about all of this because it was just last Thursday that I went to a presentation about shadow work and Jungian shadow work, and all of this sounds a lot like well, I mean, meditation is a kind of a is kind of shadow work, if you will. As you said, like all those voices, all those thoughts that pop up, listen to them. Don't judge, and I think that's also a huge part of shadow work. Like not judging, just listening, focusing on what they're telling you. And just a quick question because that's something I'm quite curious about. Do you think that people are, especially nowadays in a world of distractions, it seems like we are actively seeking that distraction and that's why there is more and more of it. Do you think it's because people are scared of what those voices, those inner voices, those inner, well, whatever you want to call them, what they'll tell them, like what they'll discover about themselves, rather be busy than find out the truth?
absolutely. Do you ever wake up in the middle of the night scared? Honestly?
Unfortunately, unfortunately not. No, or fortunately, I do not. I sleep quite well.
No, you never wake up and have that moment where you're like, it's a feeling of being human. I think we all
Well, I mean,
feel
I'm
a little bit of existential dread, whatever you want to call it, because
every
we
now and
know
then, sure,
we,
yeah,
yeah, the world's, I mean, a scary place sometimes, and we're all headed to the same destination, which is the
mm,
No more breathing. So if you stop the work, the distractions, the noise, the next fix, whether it's a nice cup of coffee, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with treating yourself to things, like we're not out to be aesthetics and deny ourselves all of life's joys. That's a big mistake.
I couldn't. I couldn't. That's
Well,
no,
that's good. That's good.
I like nice things. I like good food. So
Yeah, so do I. So the point isn't to deny yourself everything, but if you stop, even for me, it can be scary. It can be scary to understand that you're this tiny little subjective manifestation of God or the universe or whatever you want to call it in
mm,
your little life, in your little neighborhood, in this vast universe. And no matter what you do, it all ends the same way. Now, you could continue on after death and think, I'm going to heaven. Hey, I'm not, I'm not knocking it. I wish I believed that I could just believe in something and die and go to heaven forever and avoid the fiery pits of hell.
I mean,
But I can't. I don't. So I'm kind of screwed. Like I'm left to my own devices here. I don't
mm,
have that. All I have is silence. That's that's all I'm left with. And what do you do with that? What do you do with the rest of your life knowing in spirituality, and this, we often talk about, you know, don't have an ego,
yeah,
lose your
yeah,
ego. Yeah, yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
be the vast universe, expansive thinking,
It's very new age. Yeah, it's not
and it's crept
authentically
in.
spirituality.
Well, it's Buddhism too. I mean, Buddhism has these traits of expansive thinking. We call it big mind.
I mean,
We c-
yeah, of course there's value in that, and I do, I definitely see the value in a lot of the teachings of the Buddha. It's just the new age has corrupted it so bad.
you have to
You
be
know,
careful with this expansive thinking. Is my point.
yeah, yeah,
For every point, good point, there's a counterpoint. So I think Zen Buddhism, to me, Zen, you think of Zen. What is Zen? Well, Zen means zazen. That means putting yourself in a balanced bodily position. So that bodily position, that zazen, which is all Zen means, a lot of people don't know that, is to put your body and your mind, theoretically, in the most balanced position it can possibly be in. But how does that
hmm,
correlate to ordinary life? One of the ways it correlates for me is for every certainty, there's a counter certainty. I mean,
yeah,
in my own thinking. So it keeps me from fixating on anything as an absolute truth. Because when we reach an absolute truth like that, we have a tendency to become inflexible. And that doesn't mean there's not wrong things that are obvious,
yeah,
like pedophilia. I can say right here and now that that's wrong. I have children. I mean, to me, that's the most abhorrent thing I could imagine
yeah,
as a parent, especially, right?
yeah. No, same. I've got two young kids as well, and well, just don't let me find out that someone's doing that
Right.
because
My point is you can't it's hard to counterbalance. I mean, you could say that the pedophile was probably a victim of pedophilia, which could have
yeah, that's
produced these actions. So, I mean, you can get into it a little, but really, there's no
just like
justification.
generally speaking, yeah,
Yeah, and we have to be careful there. We've seen it in the past with cults where they take that thinking, that kind of expansive thinking and justify terrible things. I mean,
taking
we've
your
seen it
lives,
throughout
taking your money,
history.
taking your
Yeah, well, we've
lands.
we've
Yeah,
seen entire nations,
yeah,
I'm not mentioning any names.
No, but yeah, no, that's very prevalent, and appointing themselves to godhood.
Very,
Yeah,
very troubling.
very, very dangerous.
So
Yes,
this is about trying to become as balanced as humanly possible, knowing the limitations of our own, subjective experiences and weaknesses and all that. And I think I like how you put that shadow work because that's really what it is. When you can reach a point where your shadows are entertaining, you like them.
sure.
If you expose yourself over and over to your shadows, they can be quite funny. You know,
Shadow work into shadow play. Yeah.
exactly. Invite
Ah,
the kid to
okay.
play. I always say, invite the kid back to play. Kids are a little mischievous.
Oh God,
It's
yeah,
it's good to be actually, but we have to be careful. We can laugh at our shadows when we should be really paying attention to them. So it's
yeah.
all an internal back and forth. It's kind of like juggling a hot potato. You just got to wait till it cools down so you don't get burnt by your own good intentions. So
Yeah,
these are the kind of weird things you may begin to consider if you really do commit to simplifying and staring at a wall. We meditate with our eyes open.
hmm
I always say you can't stare at a wall with your eyes closed.
it's kind of hard
Everybody,
to do so.
almost everybody who I've shown this type of meditation, especially if they've done meditation before, their natural inclination is to close their eyes.
I think
Everybody
that's
wants to
because
close their eyes
Yeah,
because
I
they
think that's
think,
because a lot of these meditational practices or meditation teachers, if it's really something you could teach, they tell you to close your eyes because I guess it kind of helps you
fall
close off
asleep.
from the outside world. Like it helps you, go
This is
into
different.
yourself.
This is opening yourself to the outside world.
Yeah, no,
This is the
exactly. And
total opposite. But the crazy thing is, the wild thing about it is, if you meditate with your eyes open long enough, and when I say long, I mean consistently as a routine,
Mhm.
it feels unnatural to close your eyes.
Yeah, I can see that.
Whereas it really does, even if people have no experience in meditation, they tend to want to close their eyes. Like you said, it's relaxing, it's becoming introspective. It's
Yeah.
so this balance I'm talking about is not some ethereal, mystical thing. This is just, well, most people have a natural tendency to close their eyes when meditating. Just make a conscious effort to keep them open. It's perfect balance. It's
Yeah.
balance.
I mean, there are different meditation practices, that do require to keep your eyes open. One is a very popular one, like flame gazing or like fire gazing. You just, you light a candle and you just stare into the flame, like really focusing on, well, focusing on the light, quite literally. Mm, And it's a different sensation. Yeah, meditating with your eyes open and with your eyes closed, and I can imagine that for a lot of people it feels awkward at first, that yeah, I mean, I'd say that meditation,
Well,
it's
each
often
day it can feel awkward, even to me after doing it all these years. It's not like beautiful bliss. It sucks sometimes.
uh, yeah,
It's hard
I get
work.
it.
It's hard work. Sometimes, 30 minutes goes by like that. You're like, wow. But sometimes it's plain torture.
Yeah,
So the one beautiful thing about staring at the wall and simplifying like this is one thing you begin to notice over time is that you're constantly changing. And we change based on conditions. We're no different than clouds, really. Clouds change, the sky changes based on conditions. It's the same with human beings. We get older. That's a big one. Things in our lives change. Everything's constantly changing. So I think
yeah,
the real reason why we seek distraction is because everything's changing and that's scary as hell. It really is. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
life is really scary for a human being. It's very hard for a human being because we can kind of be self conscious. I mean, my cat, Pork Chop, he's in my book a lot. You know, he's kind of like just cool, you know, a couple of toys, some food, water, litter box, let him chase some
Yeah.
things, you know. I don't think he's sitting around pondering his worth or existence or his niche in the natural world. I really don't think
No.
he is.
Yeah. No, I
So
got I've got 2 cats myself. I definitely recognize that, especially Big Red, Timmy. He's a big ginger cat, and I mean, he's just living his best life, and yeah, like not contemplating about indeed like, oh, what's my position in the world? Like, am I gonna be successful? It's like, no, I'm a cat. I eat, I sleep, I shit, I get cuddles. I'm
They
good.
they they know their role. Yeah, I think they're comfortable in their role. Now, that doesn't mean like my cat won't jump 6 feet in the air if you accidentally drop something. So, like, even the coolest cat, there's a chapter in the book called One Cool Cat. Even the coolest cat, it's got a little fear, a little scaredy cat in them, you know,
Mhm.
depending on what happened in their lives, too. Like, my cat from a kitten was on the streets of Miami. Someone saw this little kitten in the street and picked it up all alone. So, you know,
Oh
that's
man.
in Pork Chop, man. Pork Chop was an orphan in a city as a tiny little kitten, couldn't hardly even see, you know? Could you imagine? So Pork Chop had a rough start. And a lot
Yeah.
of us have rough starts too. Like, you know, I never felt easy in my own skin growing up. Yeah, from the time I was born, I remember this pull of dread and anxiety. I really do as a baby. And my mother confirms it because she said I would cry incessantly.
Mhm.
If she left the room, I would hold my breath till I turned blue and pass out if she tried to leave. So she couldn't find a babysitter, obviously. And I
Wow.
didn't want to come out. Her labor was like, I don't know how many hours or days. And, you know, as I've sat still over the years, I realized that that little dread or anxiety or whatever you want to call it has always existed, like right here in my throat, kind of a tightening of the throat, tightening. I've had it since I was as far back as I can possibly remember. So I used to look at people that were like cool cats, human beings, you know, like Bob,
Yeah.
the janitor, who was like cool, just a cool dude, always happy, joking, you know, just a fun guy. I would be like, man, you know, what's their secret? And sometimes their
Yeah.
secret, usually the secret is all the same. They're just comfortable being who they are. They're just being that acting naturally. You know, they accept themselves and their circumstances and they're just cool. But to me, that was unheard of, especially after getting out of the Marines, you know. I didn't want
Mm,
to just
yeah.
join the Marines. I wanted to join, you know, the craziest, of course. And so that amplified all that like 50 fold, you know? So I never thought I would find any semblance of peace. But I always say, if I can be relatively stable and peaceful, I think any human being can.
I mean, yeah, we all should be able to, even in these crazy times with the world. I mean, almost changing by the day. It seems.
Well, here's the way I put it. I work with guys on death row. So these are, I mean, pretty much every single one of them but one I've ever met, their childhood was legitimately just beyond what we most of us could understand. You know, unless you
Yeah.
were born in a war zone or a conflict region or a place where drug cartels rule and there's violence and all that, which a lot of people have. I mean, we have to take that into consideration. It
Hmm.
becomes stabilizing your thoughts and your body and your emotions even more difficult. So I do think there are some people who are so imbalanced by their conditions that it's not really going to matter what they do. But there's other people in the exact same conditions that can reach a point of stabilization. So it's hard for me to say who can and can't, you know, reach a point of peace. But I do
Yeah.
think to a large degree, and I talk about this in my book, that peace is circumstantial. I mean, you either have the conditions for it or you don't. And sometimes it's just too extreme of an environment for the individual to overcome it. And I completely understand that, you know? So it really depends on the individual.
Yeah. You believe that it's more so nature versus nurture. Like perhaps
Well,
everyone has it in them to be stable, but not everyone lives a life that is, conducive to
right.
bring about the
It,
elements to, becoming stable. As as you mentioned, like, drug dealers, whatever.
well, here's how I simplify
Yeah.
that. See if you like this. You have a seed. You can
Mm,
either plant it or it falls from the tree or it falls from the plant or a bird takes it. But the seed, if it has balanced enough conditions, it's going to grow.
yeah.
But if it lands on concrete in the middle of Amsterdam and a tractor trailer runs it over, a lorry runs it over, it's not going to grow.
Yeah. Good.
So, I mean, a seed has to have balanced conditions. Now, as human beings, we're unique where we can kind of take our seed and plant it somewhere else and create these conditions, where it will grow.
Mm,
So we're kind of unique in nature that way, but some people never have a nice plot of soil to plant themselves and
yeah.
they're just not going to grow. It's real simple. And I always say a seed, like a cat, doesn't sit around thinking about how it's going to grow into this big, beautiful olive tree, which takes about 80 years to actually produce an olive. you know,
Yeah.
they don't think, they just go through their various growth stages. And if the conditions are right for them to grow, they grow into a beautiful fruit bearing tree. And we're kind of like that, at least to myself. I was given, I mean, as extreme as the United States can seem at times to an outsider. I mean, I got to be honest, it's relatively quiet and stable around here.
Mm.
It's like,
Well, luckily.
it's pretty good conditions to grow. So I have to be appreciative of that. I
Yeah.
mean, I really do appreciate that. And I know there's consequences to my way of life and people and resources, and the natural world is exploited in order for me to be in this great position.
That's yeah. No, but that's just a given. If you're alive in any way, shape, or form, you're gonna take up resources. It's as simple as that. And I think, the best that you can do is be conscious about the resources that you use, or, at least like try to be as conscious as possible, as we just said, sometimes you don't really have a choice. Sometimes it is the only resource that you can use. Well, I mean, then use it to its fullest
Right.
potential.
And then let go. Like when
Yeah.
I lived on the island of Maui, and I was a hardcore environmentalist at that point. And so my daughter was born. Okay. I started with cloth diapers. You know how much water I used?
Oh,
It
just to
was like
rinse them.
yeah,
Yeah.
it was like a small agricultural farm amount of water. It
Wow.
wasn't practical. So
No.
you're not using disposable diapers, but then you're using a disproportionate amount of water and heat to heat up the
Yeah.
water. But anyway, so I gave up on that. So then I went on Amazon and I'm like, oh, sustainable diapers. These are actually compostable. So I was like, perfect.
Okay.
They were way too expensive. Like I could not continue to pay $55 a box, for these
Oof.
compostable diapers, right?
Kids are expensive enough as they are.
Yeah. So what did I ended up doing? I ended up using the ones that are going to be in the Maui landfill until the sun burns out. That taught me a big lesson. Like a crap diaper, a baby's diaper, taught me a huge lesson about that. Like you have to be
Baby's
your
diaper. Yeah.
spirituality, your beliefs have to be practical,
Yeah.
and if you're aware and you can't do anything about it, the best thing you can do is let go. Put that in the pile of the things you can't control.
Yeah.
So my daughter's diapers will be in Maui forever.
Sorry, Maui. No, but no, you make a good point. Actually, never thought like using baby's diapers as an analogy for it, but no, that's a good one. You think you're doing the right thing and using cloth diapers because at least they're not like chemically made or whatever. But then you use a small farm, for water and cleaning and all of that. Okay, compostable. Well, that's too damn expensive. Then it's like if you don't have money to buy food, well, I mean, you don't need the diapers either. So
Right.
there's that. But if you have diapers but no food, yeah, okay, sure. But so yeah, it's a struggle. It's sometimes it can be a struggle to find balance. But yeah, as you said, I don't think you should. Well, yeah, just sometimes letting go is the best you can do for your own balance, for your own internal balance. Because if like that is the one thing that keeps tipping you over to one side, and it's really like you've tried everything. It's like, okay, can I do it myself? Not really, because it's going to be a lot more labor and a lot more intensive, and that'll take away from all the other things that I could do. Okay, can I don't know, like get it in bulk? Yes, but
What's the
okay.
process? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, get it in bulk, which means there's more processing, there's more weight, more exhaust fumes, whatever. Okay, fuck. You know what? I'll just stick to the standard, let it go. You know?
Exactly. That's the key to everything right there. So I ask, people are like, "Well, what's this all about? What do you teach?" I'm like, the real question I ask is, how do you feel in your own skin every day? Are
Yeah.
you are you relatively content? Do you appreciate what you have rather than what you don't have? How do you feel? How is your way of thinking? How does it affect your everyday life, the people around you, the people you love, your perception of yourself? It's real simple. How do you feel? I ask
Mm-hmm.
people, how do you feel? How does it feel to be you? They look at me like I'm an alien. But I mean, they really do not know how to answer. Like,
Well,
how do you?
answer truthfully, because like, oh, especially the man. Like every time you ask a man, it's like, "Hey, how you doing?" It's like, "Yeah, yeah, I'm good. I'm
Cool.
good. I'm cool. Things are going the way they're going." So
But I always say, like, show me your mind.
yeah.
It's fascinating. You know, I'm not criticizing anyone, but if someone said, show me your mind, I would immediately start showing them my mind because I've actually focused on it. I can
Yeah.
actually, to an extent, express it. But so that's kind of the questions we ask ourselves in front of the wall, and that stillness and silence. How do I feel?
Mm-hmm.
What's do I appreciate what I have? Uh, and then those questions lead to more questions.
That's
And then it's the
how
back and
questions
forth.
work.
And then for me personally, I asked these big universal questions. I went so far out into the universe in this meditation and spirituality thing that finally I realized that is a complete waste of time. I am not going to solve the infinite formula of reality in
Well,
my
not
lifetime.
yeah, I was gonna say, like, not within one lifetime at least. You're gonna
Yeah,
need
right.
you're gonna need several for that.
So let it go, man. And then what's left? When you let everything go, what do you got? What's there? It's kind of like a spring breeze, this whole spiritual thing.
Hmm.
Okay. Winter's over. You open the window, the breeze comes in, it moves whatever's light enough for it to move. If you stay out of its way, it'll take the dust and move it right out of the house, the wind. But whatever's heavy, it's not going to move all your furniture for you, the spring breeze.
That's one hell of a spring breeze.
So what is the spring breeze? Well, the spring breeze it signifies life. It
Hmm.
moves coolly. Each breeze is different. So for me, I've narrowed it down to, just appreciate the spring breeze
Yeah.
when it comes, because it's going to be different. Each person's going to experience it differently, but are we appreciating ourselves, our family, our lives, our communities, our planet? Are we appreciating it more? Are we relatively like a kid? Do we play a lot? Do we
Hmm.
laugh? Do we sing? Do we dance? What are we actually doing? And if your spirituality is making you more serious, more worried, more angry, less calm, maybe it's time to take a look at that because that's not the
Yeah.
point of the whole thing. The point of the whole
No,
thing is
no.
to appreciate this. Like, here's you
Yeah.
and I, right? Talking through this cyber satellite system, one country to another, talking about these, basic things in life. We're in a privileged position to be able to have a conversation like this.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, even
If you're struggling to eat, you're not having conversations like this. You're
no, then
focused
your
on
thought is on your next meal, or if even if you're like gonna have a next meal, because that's what's important to you at that moment.
right. So all these distractions are actually a sign that we have the privilege or the conditions for our seed to grow.
Yeah,
Otherwise, we
yeah,
wouldn't have time for all that crap, right? We'd be too worried about just getting water and light and nutrients
yeah.
from the soil.
Working the lands, making sure the animals are taken care of, our kids
Right.
don't starve, all of that. Yeah, even even like 150, 200 years ago, like that was still the case for so many people, and now we can just take time out of our day, take time out of our week to have a conversation like this, and we won't starve,
No.
or the crops won't die because we're having a conversation like this on high-minded
Right. And
topics.
we're not looking over our shoulder, is a bomb going to fall on my house,
Yeah.
while we're talking. So we have, pretty nice conditions. And what do you do with that? What's for me, I say, like, everything in the universe, in the natural world, especially, you got to understand now, and I emphasize this quite a bit because of the new age universe ideas. The universe is mostly dark, chaotic, violent. It's not a real appetizing place to be. But in our little tiny pocket of balance here, because this planet and this star developed a relationship at the perfect distance. They're the perfect age. They're
Yeah.
everything had to be perfectly balanced for us to have all these distractions and wars and hatred. So the backdrop of all this seeming chaotic, purposeless, distraction, violent world is perfect balance. This is perfect balance. And if you don't believe me, just put yourself in a balanced meditation posture and look at your own body, and then you'll realize that you are also perfect balance.
Yeah.
We can't have a conversation like this without it's such a privilege to be in this little balanced pocket of eternity. Most of us, including myself, we take it for granted, and But I do think I've found my niche, kind of like a cat. I kind of know my purpose, even when I'm not doing it. And sometimes I feel like I'm not doing my purpose and I'm wasting my time. I know my purpose. It's just to help people stare at the wall. We all have a niche. Everything has a niche. The key as a human being is we have to actually find ours or invent ours.
Yeah,
Just make sure the one you invent is actually, making you feel comfortable in your skin and appreciating this miracle. If that's where you're at, man, you're one of the privileged few throughout
yeah.
history. Now, I don't look at that privilege as like, oh, I'm so aware and I was chosen by God to be in. No, because you can look at it that way, like, oh
I
wow,
mean,
like yeah.
it's nice and makes you feel good, but that's not what it is.
No, it's just to help me wow, appreciate everything, even the crappy things. I've had a wonderful run and we'll see where it leads. But right now, I'm here with you. I'm in a balanced position. I've been sitting this whole time
Mhm.
in the meditation position, and my legs are starting to hurt.
No, but I think balance and just appreciating the small things, appreciating the easy things is so incredibly important. Especially now that like we're really living in the age of hustle culture and influencers trying to sell you something 24/7. Like the quote from Fight Club always comes to mind. Trying to sell or buying shit you don't need with money you don't have.
Well,
Mm.
your podcast and my message and your message is you're free from all that.
Yeah,
We're
and that's
selling nothing. Literally, I'm selling nothing. Just sit there and stare at your wall. That's it.
yeah,
So,
yeah, and I'm just here to to spread the message, to help people like you have a platform, to give people like you a platform. And I'm lucky enough that there are plenty of people who like what I'm doing, and they do support me, whether it just be by watching, liking, sharing, subscribing to Patreon, whatever. I'm just appreciative that I have an audience, that there are people who like what I do. I mean, I probably I'll still be doing it even if the platform dies down a little, because I just love having these conversations. Over the God, what is it, 4 or 5 years that I've been doing this now? I've met so many interesting people. I've had so many interesting conversations, and I'm so incredibly thankful for that. And it's also given me so many insights. And I mean, yeah, I am very privileged in that regard, that I'm able to do this, that I got the time to do this, that I can make the time to do this. But I do definitely appreciate it, and I like it, and it it helps me center as
well,
well.
keep going.
I will. I
Yeah,
I don't plan on stopping anytime soon. If anything, I'm expanding it into into more of a network, help
but even
help
if like
other.
one person, watches this conversation and it helps
That's
them do or change or one thing, I mean, to me, that's that's a bonus. Like the conversation was cool in itself.
Yeah,
So if I expected to be appreciated, I would have quit a long time ago, you know.
yeah, and if it
But
was all
I
about the
appreciate it.
I know exactly, and if it was more about the material things, or whatever, I would have chosen a different niche.
Yeah,
Definitely,
you're gonna have people who are like, "Hey, man, how's your little podcast going?" Like you're always gonna have detractors, even if, like, for me, it can be people in my own family. Like they're like, "Well,
mm,
if you're not charging, it's not legitimate." To me, it's the exact opposite. If I'm not charging, it's legitimate. But to them, so My point is if we appreciate ourselves and we found our niche, any appreciation outside of that is just kind of like the guy coming and chopping his arm off and handing it to Bodhidharma. You know, he's staring at the wall. It doesn't matter if anybody appreciates it or not. But one last thing, he went in front of this powerful emperor in China.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, the guy could have you killed with just like a nod. You know, you go like this and they'd come and you're dead. Well, so he brought the Bodhidharma. He heard about this guy and he said, well, who are you? And the Bodhidharma said, I don't know. And he walked away.
Wow. Okay.
And the answer tortured the emperor. Like, you know, not only did he get up and walk away, he said he didn't really know, you know, who he was or, but the answer's perfect. It means the Bodhidharma lost his identity. Like he didn't identify as some wise man meditating at a wall who could provide emperors with wise, you know,
Yeah.
solution.
Okay.
You know, he
Sure.
basically said, you know, I'm nothing, man. You know, leave me alone. And
I am who I am, and what I am is
we are who we are, and be who you are, whoever you are or aren't.
that gets kind of confusing, but I get it. I get it.
Well, that's the point. You know, life is confusing. But anyway, we got
Yeah.
a football match starting up here.
Oh well, then I won't keep you any further. You know, enjoy the little things in life, of course. The Netherlands has already been eliminated from the World Cup, unfortunately.
I know, my
I guess
God, but like
Morocco of everyone.
Paraguay was it or who was
No,
it?
it
Oh,
was
Morocco.
yeah, Morocco, and then
Okay, well that's a little.
penalty kicks. I believe we lost like
Oh,
5-4.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah, me too.
It's got to be very hard.
Uh, I mean, it was a good run. We definitely kicked some ass. Kicked the Swedes 5-1. Holy shit,
Yeah.
that was a great match.
Well, I got the
But
U.S. tonight, and there was a red card that's been rescinded by
yeah, so
presidential
I
pardon. Trump got involved somehow, I heard,
of course he did. That that
and the
that
red
does
card
not
has been rescinded.
that does not surprise me.
I mean,
That
I
guy's
agree
ego.
that that red card should have been rescinded. I mean, if that was Messi, he would have never got a red card and thrown
Oh
out of
no,
the
but he,
next
he
game.
he's the favorite.
Yeah, I mean, if it was one of the big, you know, star players, there is no way they would have gotten thrown out. So I kind of agree with the decision. But right now we got Portugal, Spain, which is a classic.
Oh,
Wow.
that should be a good one. That should be a clash. Yeah, I won't keep you any further. Just real quick, where may the good people find you, find more about you, find more about staring at the wall?
Well, stareatthewall.org. That's number one. You can always get in touch with me. And then Just Stare at the Wall is the name of the book. That's on all the, you know, major outlets. And the subtitle is Living the Universe from Where You Sit. And
Awesome.
that's
Well,
it.
I'll make sure that the links are in the description box down below. I always want to make sure that my guests are well represented, of course, because without my guests, I wouldn't have learned half the things that I have and wouldn't have half the platform that I do.
Thank
So
you.
yeah, thank you very much for joining. I definitely I appreciate this conversation. It's definitely given me stuff to think about, and that I really should just appreciate the little things.
But don't beat yourself up, you know.
No, 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 no,
We're
no. Of
human.
course not.
We're
No,
human, you know.
it's a reminder more so. It's a reminder more so that I should just. I've been busying myself too much. So I'm glad to have today and tomorrow off, so I can just kind of get back to basics.
Enjoy.
I will. So yeah, thank you for joining. Thank you everyone for watching. Thank you everyone for listening. Please do remember to like, share, and subscribe. You can support us on Patreon via patreon.com/squaringpagans, all voluntarily, of course. I got some good stuff on there. More is More is coming. For all the independent podcasters, of course, do join the Growing Pagans Network. And I want to kind of grow from a podcaster to a broadcaster. Want to help people with the knowledge and the skills that I have gathered over the years. So for that, go to our website, www.queerhornpagans.com, or just simply send an email to info@queerhornpagans.com. And yeah, we'll see what we can do for each other. I wish you all a good morning, good evening, good night, whatever it may be to you. And I will see you next time on another episode of the Graham Pagans podcast with, of course, another amazing, interesting guest. Thank you all. Bye-bye. This was yet another amazing episode of the Greyhorn Pagans podcast. We thank you all for watching. We thank you all for listening. Remember to like, share, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you will be notified whenever we upload something new. Support us on Patreon for early access and for everything else that we do with the tribe, for everything else that we do with the podcast. Find us on www.queerhornpagans.com. For now, we thank you, and until next time. This was yet another amazing episode of the Greyhorn Pagans podcast. We thank you all for watching. We thank you all for listening. Remember to like, share, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you will be notified whenever we upload something new. Support us on Patreon for early access and for everything else that we do with the tribe, for everything else that we do with the podcast. Find us on www.queerhornpagans.com. For now, we thank you.